Hey guys, this is Jeff Ignatowski here with True Crime, Myths, Legends, and more. I told you guys I was going to start doing some documentary reviews, and this is the first one. So, the first one that I wanted to do is kind of a follow up from our interview that we did with the Zodiac expert that we had on here, and I thought was incredible. We talked about, of course, the possibility that Ted Kaczynski could be the Zodiac. And shortly after we did that interview, Netflix released a new documentary several months ago called This is the Zodiac Speaking. And it is a three-part docuseries that talks about the Arthur Lee Allen, and it gets all of the family members and all of the, kids that he taught in school and everything. There are many, many, many people in this documentary that had personal accounts with Arthur Lee Allen, and really, really digs into his background and who he was as a person. And, they all believe that he was the Zodiac. And so it was interesting to see from their perspective, and now looking back over, 40 plus years of this unsolved case and hearing them put together and connect all the dots. And some of the family members were actually kids that their mom had dated Arthur Lee Allen for some time, and they had some very intimate connections with this guy and saw him from from a very different perspective than most people would get to see him. So they have a lot of knowledge of his movements and where he was and different trips that he took, and weird little things that he did, like crafting his own wetsuit and things like that, which they believe may have had something to do with the fact that the Zodiac made his own hood and things like that. And they saw things that could have resembled that. And the documentary is actually excellent. It's a great documentary to watch, to get information. However, I have to say this too, that ultimately the documentary itself ends with a fizzle rather than a pop. And so at the end of the documentary, where they really get to is the fact that one of the kids saw a knife in the trunk that looked like it had some blood on it that may have been used in connection with one of the crimes. And in the third episode of this documentary, they talk about it. But at the very, very end, they leave you wanting, because they don't give you the final analysis. There's no DNA report saying that was connected to any of the murders. So we really don't know anything. And really what it alludes to is those DNA results were inconclusive. And so we know that there's this knife that was found in Arthur Lee Allen's trunk that ultimately one of the kids got. But what does that mean? Does it really tie Allen to any of the crimes? Was the blood that was found on that his, or was it one of the victims? We just don't know. And they leave you at this cliffhanger of not knowing any of that stuff. They do a great job of building a case, and then ultimately that goes nowhere and it ends there. And so, it's interesting to hear all the perspectives and hear all the connections that this family has made that point the finger towards Arthur Lee Allen, but ultimately there's no conclusive evidence at all. It's another documentary that, sheds light and points fingers and gives a good postulation about who this could be or why they would have done it, but ultimately gives you no conclusive answers at all. And so we're still left to wonder, was he really the Zodiac? Lots of people have always believed that it was Arthur Lee Allen, including myself. Did this documentary push me any closer to that? Probably not. And mainly because of the ending of the documentary. because I feel like that if it was conclusive and they could have proved it, they would have. There would either be a fourth episode or there would have been a DNA report at the end of that. The fact that they didn't put that in there really, really makes me question the rest of the documentary. So, when you watch it, know that there's lots of interesting information in there. However, the end of it makes me question all of their evidence, right? Because if you can't give me the most simple DNA result after you've waited months and months and months and months and built this up to release this documentary, then I feel like maybe you have nothing. And maybe you've set this all up hoping that DNA result was going to come back positive, but then they don't even show it at all. Whether it's positive, negative, inconclusive, nothing. They just don't ever explain it. So, it is what it is, and it really makes me question all of their other evidence when they're telling me all these things or putting all this stuff together. So yeah, ultimately, that's my review. If you get a chance, go to Netflix, go and watch it. It's 3 episodes. I think they're like an hour 15 each. And it's a good watch, especially if you want to get background history on Arthur Lee Allen. Sorry, I'm also in Delphi world right now. And so Richard Allen is on the mind. Arthur Lee Allen, very interesting. But, it's a good documentary. Go and check it out. Maybe you guys can find some things that I didn't in that documentary. But ultimately, the ending of it really kind of soured me on anything else they had to say. Like, at least give me the results. I know that you have them. I know that you guys know what those results are. What were they? Like, you obviously sent them in to find out. And you wouldn't have released the documentary without having those results returned to you. And the fact that you don't even include them calls into question everything else you've mentioned. So, that's ultimately my review. I think it's worth watching, but I think it is lackluster in the end. And I think we don't find out anything definitively about who the Zodiac actually is or was, or any real clues, because ultimately, just like it's happened before 100 times now, somebody else's name comes up, somebody's uncle or grandfather. There's a journal found, or, oh, they were in this location and they were in this location and they could have been part of this or whatever. And there's all this speculation, whoever it is, there's been, probably hundreds by now that have come up and been in question. Arthur Lee Allen has always kind of led the pack, and this was more background information, but does it move the needle? No. Does it give us anything definitive? No. Unless they come out and they publish those DNA results and it says something conclusive, there's no smoking gun to point the finger at Arthur Lee Allen. So yeah, well, thanks for joining us for this this documentary review. We'll keep them coming, and we'll do more of them. We'll get more stuff. I'll be able to put things up on the screen and everything. But yeah, check it out, guys, and let me know your thoughts. Comment below. Let me know what you thought, if you've watched the documentary, if you've taken the time, what your conclusions were on it, because I'd like to hear from you. You guys are important, and also post any other documentaries that you want me to do a review on. Any of the ones out there, I would love to take a look at it. I've got many, many more that I've watched and that are very interesting that I'm going to do this with. So yeah, let me know what you guys want next, and we'll go from there. And I will talk to y'all soon. Thanks for tuning in. Comment, share, like, do all of that stuff, subscribe, because it's all good. I'm going to try to keep these about 10 minutes so that they're not an hour or 2 hours long. We'll keep them short and sweet, and like give you all the good information that we can. Thank you, guys.